Hello, everyone. Welcome to all of you joining us tonight. This is Dynasty 365. I am a face you do not recognize unless you've been around a long, long time. I'm your host for the evening, Jeremy Noble. I am a Fantasy and Frame alum, OG back in the day, filling in for Chris Burns. We are not the same person. I know it was very confusing when you first tuned in. But tonight, my show co host is Rick Sickles. And we are going to discuss some news and notes from around the NFL and fantasy landscape and dive into Rich's favorite Dynasty Trade Targets. That's why you're here. And Rich, without further ado, can you please hit that sweet, sweet intro music?
Here we go. All right.
Awesome. Welcome to everyone tuning in. We got YouTube, where you're listening to us on the podcast. We appreciate you hanging out with us tonight. Please remember to post your comments, your questions in the chat. It could be about trades, buy, sell, or any other questions you may have. We love to interact, so please just leave us a line, drop it in there. We'll try and get to you during the show. Without further ado, we'll just dive right in. News and nugs of the week. Our first topic, we hate to do it, happens every week. We got injuries. We got more injuries. Some may be devastating to your team, but remember, it's only week. We're early in the season. First third or so, quarter done. You got plenty of time to come back. But I think the first one that's probably top of mind, and we got to figure out for Monday Night Football what we do with it, is Rashee Rice done for the year, breaking hearts. Just when you think you know who is the new number one target, say la vie, hopefully next season. But Rich, thoughts, mornings, any comments on losing Rashee Rice? I don't know if you lost him. I got banged up bad with that on one team.
Yeah, I lost him in a couple of redrafts. Luckily I didn't have him in too many dynasties. But yeah, my redrafts are struggling right now. I'm hurting. But we'll figure it out. Especially my home league.
Concerned on him? No, go ahead. I'm sorry, Rich. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, it's just my home league. Just gonna say, yeah, they're gonna. I had a chance, and now that he's gone, I don't think I have a chance anymore. So I'm pretty sure I'm done for the year. But no, as far as he goes, like dynasty wise, I am kind of worried about the next couple of years because we have to deal with this injury now for the rest of the season, and then going into next season, you're looking at that. Most likely he'll be looking at a suspension from the legal issues that he's been dealing with and whatnot. So it might be a while before we see Rashee Rice on the field again. The one thing that I took away from Monday night though was Monday night, right? Juju looked good. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I was really surprised at how good he looked on the field. So
yeah, I agree. You could have fooled me. We went back in time about 5 years, and that was vintage Juju. This gray hair, remember, is some vintage Juju.
right.
We'll talk more. But for sure. So not as devastating, only on IR, but still, I think the number 2 wide receiver in half PPR scoring, Nico Collins, placed on the IR. You hate to see it, but it also maybe there's a little bit of a relief. You go, they're not going to try and manage this week to week. Can you start him? Do you start him? Is there a risk of more severe injury? I think they're playing conservative and saying, let's get him on the IR, let's get him healthy. Maybe this is Tank Dell reemergence season. Maybe Xavier Hutchinson is a play. I know waivers have run in a lot of leagues, but perhaps somebody might have dropped Tank. Somebody did drop Tank in one of my leagues. I was a little surprised. I might be bidding on them, but I'm not going to say yes or no. But Xavier Hutchinson might be out there. So, Rich, thoughts on either of those? Either try to trade for Tank, or maybe try to pick up Xavier Hutchinson for a few week rental.
Sure. Yeah. So I think you got to fire up Tank if you got him. I think he's finally going to have his chance to get on the field more and show why they picked him up in the first place. I guess I don't really have too much of a thought on Xavier Hutchinson. I did have him stashed all over the place on taxi squads, and I finally had to drop him. And so I guess I don't really have. It would be cool. Like I would be so happy if he is becomes a big part of the team and everything. And if you have a spot available for him, then yes, by all means, go pick him up. I mean, why not? Diggs is probably going to be the one that is the guy that you really want there, but Xavier Hutchinson or Tank Dell, one of the two needs to step up so that they have somebody else there. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I agree. I'm a little hesitant to pick up Hutchinson. It's, feels like with Dell's on IR, who knows, the next few weeks could just be leaning heavily on Diggs and Tank Dell gets back in the mix. And we already saw it's hard for all three of those mounts to get fed when you're talking about the talent of Nico and Diggs and Dell getting a smaller piece of that pie by Hutchinson. Maybe you strike lightning probably means he has a big week this week. You scramble to go get him next week. He has a down week. You're not sure what to do on week 3, and then Nico's back in week 4, hopefully.
right.
So it might just be a little bit of a fool's errand, in my opinion. Last couple injuries to talk through. We've got Derek Carr now week to week. Got injured at the end of the game Monday night. I thought, we got Spencer Rattler, which to me sounds like a variation of Jake the Snake Plumber from forever ago. I don't know why in my brain that does that, but for some reason I feel like he's somehow connected with Jake the Snake.
Right.
I'm not super stoked on Kamara and just keep going riding that train. I think this means that counting on your long bomb to Rashee Rice is probably less likely at this point. I know I'm not banking on it in one of my big bonus leagues where I have him. But I'm not sure if too many people are starting Carr, but I do think it depreciates the value of some of the special playmakers around him for the
Yeah.
next week at least.
Yep. No, I'm right there with you. Before I get into that real quick, Albert, pleasure to see you in the chat, man. Thank you for joining us. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm really worried. The only thing that I wrote down for this was worried for the entire Saints offense. Like I'm every piece. Maybe Olave finally starts to get more looks because they're gonna need to rely on somebody to that is a little bit more of a playmaker, that isn't quite that stretched down the field, big shot guy like Rashid Shaheed is. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe happens, but I still am just everyone is going to take a step down, take a step back in my book, for sure.
Yep. Agreed. I think, you're still starting Kamara, you're still starting Olave. Maybe Rashee Rice, or I wish Rashee Rice moved to wide receiver 3. Shaheed maybe moves to like more of a wide receiver 3. Juwan Johnson maybe is not that flex play you want to try and do, but we'll see. Last injury to go through: Aaron Jones, hip injury. Vikings on a bye, so I guess the big question is, Ty Chandler, that's a stash, that's a grab, you might as well just wait for Aaron Jones to come back on the bye. What are you thinking, Rich, is the right play here for redraft?
Right. I do think that if there's a chance that you can get Ty Chandler, I think that you should. I before the season began, I was grabbing Ty Chandler where I could, just because I loved what I saw out of him at the end of last season. So I don't think that he's a bad stash by any means. But overall, I'm really not that worried. Like you said, they are on the bye week this week. I think that whatever was going on, he seemed like he was walking just fine. It seemed more like a precautionary type situation with the fact that they had such a lead that they did against the Jets. Like they just felt maybe they didn't need to have him out there, but again, or rush him back out there. And we've seen this from O'Connell and company before, where like with injuries and stuff like that, they slow roll it. They want to make sure their guys are healthy before they force them back into it. So I mean, with that in mind, maybe there's a chance that Aaron Jones does miss a couple weeks just because of the fact that they do tend to slow roll it. But I do think that Aaron Jones will be back here before too long. So I'm not too worried.
Yeah, if I'm the Aaron Jones manager, I might take this chance to add him to my bench if I don't have him. I'm not sure he's a total handcuff, but I agree he's got the talent. That offense, with Darnold there is humming. I chalk last week up to you fly to London, weird things happen, unless you're Jacksonville, in which case it's basically home, apparently. I think you just write that one off for Sam Darnold. Again, who thought in week 5 we'd be saying Sam Darnold has got that offense humming,
Right.
and the Vikings are the only undefeated team in the NFC. Absolutely not on my bingo card for the 2024 season.
I don't know if Jorge let you know, but I am the resident Vikings fan in fantasy and
Hey, I'm
frames.
excited for you. I'm excited for you. And actually, I was gonna. Speaking of Jorge, looks like he might be hanging around in the chat here.
Oh yeah, yep. Looks like we got Jorge in the chat. Oh, look at that.
Eyes do not
Jeremy
deceive you,
Nolan.
Jorge. I am indeed not Chris Burns. Very
What's up,
confusing, I
Jorge?
know.
Right. And Jamie, see you there. What's up, Jamie? Happy to see you here. Thanks for joining us as always.
All
Well,
right, now I think we should, Rich. I think we should move into why the people came tonight. They want to get your view, dynasty trade targets. We're in the season. I think we get a decent idea of what some of these offenses, especially with new head coaches, coordinators that may or may not be staying on for a couple years, what they're looking to implement. So, with that in mind, let's turn to who you're looking at in terms of rookies. And I have a feeling this is a place where we might be thinking about, we are not exactly sure what the new head coaching situation might be.
right. Yeah. Well, and this is more of for this first one, this is somebody that I'm trading for a rookie. I'm looking to play the long game on this a little bit. And that's how I'm looking at Braylon Allen. I do think that he is somebody that you want to have on your teams. I just don't think that he's going to make an immediate impact. Like, you look at what he's done so far, and he's looked really, really good out there on the field. But he hasn't really made an impact fantasy wise. And so, and add in the fact that, like you said, the head coaching situation there with the Jets, I feel like the Jets are just the most dysfunctional thing in the world right now. Firing, and we'll get into that in a little bit here, but but yeah, I can't wrap my head around what just happened with Robert Saleh, and so I think in the long run, like I said, Braylon Allen, he's going to be good. He's going to get his chance to shine someplace. I don't think it'll be with the Jets because Breece Hall has such a stranglehold on the starting job there and everything. But given some time, I think Braylon Allen will find someplace to go. And he was like coming out of the draft, going into the draft before he was drafted, he was my running back 1. And then he got picked up by the Jets, and I immediately dropped him down because I just knew Breece Hall being there was not going to be good for his his fantasy life in Dynasty. So, but yeah, no, I think that right now is actually a really good time to try to buy somewhat low on him. I think that you could get it done for like a late second. I think that wouldn't be too bad of a target to throw at the owner for Braylon Allen. Mainly because of the fact that, like I was saying, he is such a slow roll right now, and with everything that's going on, I think that maybe there could be some concerns long run for him. So, or at least that you could try to work that with the owner. You know what I mean? So,
I think it makes a lot of sense. And, especially it's not a lot of head coaches, but you do see some head coaches come in that are leaning more to not a full running back by committee, but doing a bit more of a split. Especially if you start seeing someone who is a really talented quote unquote backup running back. I mean, I think we're seeing that in Cincinnati right now. I think they've
right,
finally realized what they've got in a Chase Brown. Helps keep some legs fresher. I know Philly, I'm an Eagles fan, but Philly, you go back to when they even won the Super Bowl, there was 3 or 4 running backs really going through that backfield throughout the season. Maybe there's even hope there for Braylon Allen to get a bigger piece of the pie if he just shows how talented he is on the limited snaps. They just give him a little bit more. So I love that. I've got him even in redraft on like half of my team's benches as that. You never know if something happens to Breece. I'm not dumping all my fab. I want to just, rather than have a wide receiver 6, keep him there. So
right.
I love that.
Yeah, that's a good
All right.
play.
Well,
That's a good play.
we've got rookies. Now we're going to go for the slightly more seasoned second-year players. Who are you eyeing up as a good dynasty trade target?
Sure. So my good dynasty trade target for second year players is Zay Flowers. I love Zay Flowers. I love Zay Flowers last year. And this is another one it's kind of a I don't want to say a slow play because he is producing right now. He's somebody that you can go out and get right away. But I think that the reason that he'll be somebody that's a little bit easier to get is just because of the fact that he is wide receiver 29 on the year. He's had some big games, but he's also had some bust games. And so I think that there's a good chance that the owner they might not be out on Flowers, but they'll at least be willing to talk and negotiate, try to make something happen. So if you have like a good wide receiver and a second round pick that you can try to trade for Zay Flowers, he's young. Um, he's really good to start for the rest of the year. Solid flex play for the rest of the season. I think he's somebody that you could get with that second round pick and another player, or possibly if you are a contender and your first round pick is going to be late, throw that first at him. I'd be more than willing to throw my first round pick at whoever the owner is for Zay Flowers at this point, especially if I'm competing. Because if it's going to be a later round pick, then why not?
But and I also think it makes sense thinking, for next season too. We've seen what Baltimore's trying to do now, which is run the ball with Derrick Henry, who's 30 years old and only on a 2-year contract. So they're going to burn that as hard as they can, as fast as they can, and then not throw the ball to Mark Andrews anymore. So who becomes the target if that offense has to shift more passing heavy? We saw it this last week. They got in a shootout. Zay Flowers got the attention. So I
Yep.
do think you never you don't want to assume that a team is going to keep running an offense like they are every year. We saw Kansas City do a major shift. It was heavy Kelsey, and then it went away because that's what they wanted to try and do. Baltimore's very capable. John Harbaugh's smart coach. He knows the talent on his team, and he knows I've got Derrick Henry at 30 years old. I'm going to run him. I'm going to run him in the ground and win football games and play smart with Lamar Jackson. He may not have that next year, or he may have a ghost of Derrick Henry. I hate to say it. Every year, I feel like somebody's trying to call it, and nobody's going to get it right. But you don't know. That could fall off a cliff, and Zay Flowers, super talented. Agreed. Third year in his contract. Then I think he's already shown some breakout talent that they just need to get him the ball more, and maybe that's a later in the season shootout games or looking to the future for next year or beyond. I like it.
Nice. Yeah.
Looks like we've got a.
Oh, go ahead. Were you going to talk
I
about the
was just
comment in the
Yep.
chat? Because
I was
that's
going
what
to
I
say
was just going to
Jamie,
do too.
who's here, who then said, "I'm sorry, I can't chat because I'm driving," has apparently magically figured out how to chat at us anyway. So props to you, Jamie. But we've got a question here of I like the late second value on Braylon Allen, who we just spoke about a minute ago, but are contending teams buying a running back hold? Love to get your thoughts. So with that, Rich, your thoughts.
Sure. Yeah. No, the way that I look at it, and you're right, Jamie, like there is definitely something to be said about whether or not a contending team, which the contending team is going to be the one that has that late second, right? So, um, whether or not they're going to have a spot for an RB to hold on to for a couple of years. Honestly, the way I'm looking at it, though, those benches on dynasty teams typically are super deep. 28 players, you should have a player that you can drop where you can put in Braylon Allen, because you're most of the time you're not starting all majority of those players anyways. So yeah, I think that at least from my perspective, if I'm a contender, I still would be more than willing to grab Braylon Allen and hold on to him for a couple of years to see what happens. And you can see that with a lot of my teams. Like I have a bunch of guys that even when I'm contending, I have guys that like I get a lot of crap from my friends. I have free agents. Like I still have Tannehill on a couple teams where I'm just like, hey, at some point he might get the call. You never know. Dolphins, you need a quarterback right now. Why are you not calling Tannehill? It worked for the Chiefs and Kareem Hunt to reunite. It could work for you too. So, but yeah, no, that's just my opinion on that. And then as far as the this next question from Jamie, do you think Henry will be the last 10,000 yard rusher in this current committee back NFL? Ooh, that is a good question.
I feel like Jonathan Taylor might have a shot. I'd have to look up. I can't remember how many how many yards he has right now, but
Yeah.
it's a really good question. I mean, here's the thing: 10,000 rushing yards, that's very possible, but 10,000 total yards, I mean, that's what you're really looking at. Is the value of the running back position is just moving a little bit more towards, a Kamara is or a Christian McCaffrey, right? Like, I don't even think McCaffrey's going to get 10,000 rushing yards because he's blowing out his value beyond that with passing. But yeah, interesting exercise to think through.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe it's Jonathan Brooks, who hopefully will see the field and absolutely tear it up, as I pray and hope, because I still have him sitting on one of my teams that I'm really hoping it comes out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's, I mean, you got to look at like like you see what they're doing with Bijan and everything. I understand the concern. Like that was the first thing that I went to was how Bijan Robinson's being used, and the fact that even he is stuck in a committee where he should be getting the majority of the touches and everything like that. But the Falcons love Algier, and they're going to use him and spell Henry where they can. And so, yeah, yeah, yep. Jamie just said, yeah, Bijan can if he gets the carries. Exactly. Like you got to give him the chance. So I really don't know. That's a good question. I do have concerns about running backs moving forward, but that's something that you got to like. I was having this conversation actually with a buddy on Twitter, Miles Gorham. We were both talking about the fact that that just the landscape in general is shifting, and you have to shift with it. That's why I like Braylon Allen so much, is because of the fact that he is such a good, even as a backup, he's such a good running back. So yeah, that's you gotta when the league shifts, you gotta shift with it. You gotta be fluid. So
Fully agreed. Well, we'll talk about some players who have seen the league shift a little bit more, moving up to our third year and up players. For you, Rich, who are you thinking in terms of the kind of vets or maybe vets that would be good dynasty targets?
sure. So the vet that I have on here, and I'm just laughing because I know how this is going to play out, but the guy that is surprising me is Juju Smith-Schuster. He's back. Like with Rashee Rice, like we were talking about with Rashee Rice being out, Juju looked so good yesterday or on Monday. He had a solid performance. He had 7 receptions on 8 targets, 130 yards, and that was only on 67% of the snaps. Like you have to imagine that he's going to get more involved in the offense in general, just because he is such a go-to guy for Mahomes. They already have that chemistry built up and everything. So I think that he is a great target for you to go for win now teams. If you are a contender and you're trying to win right now, you could probably get them for an early third, or even I would pay a late second for them. That seems like a lot, but at the same time, I feel like that's for what you're going to, for somebody that is going to give you a chance at winning your league the way that Juju is going to give you from here on out. You got to be willing to pay for it. So that's he's my guy I'm targeting in those ones.
I mean, I feel like this is a fool you thrice kind of a thing, but at the same time, we saw it. We saw it on the field Monday. It was bonkers. I was very surprised. I mean, maybe he's been able to rest the last couple of years, not playing very good football, or I don't know. He's like the opposite MVS. MVS is like, I'm gonna run down the field as hard as I can and not catch anything. And Juju's
Right.
like, I'm just gonna hang out around the line of scrimmage, not catch a lot, and I'll be fresh when the star wide receiver, second year wide receiver goes down, I guess. I don't know. But I like that. I like that, Rich, because even if you get what, a 70% Rushy Rice or 60% Rushy Rice, that seems like that's worth a very late second or early third to try and help, get an extra flex as a locked in flex spot.
Yeah. No, exactly. Oh, real quick, Jamie threw in the chat here. He had a trade. Someone offered him his early to mid 2025 first and Higgins for Reed in a super flex, and he smashed it. Yeah, I'm with you on that. If you've been listening to the show, you know that I've been pounding the table for a while now about the fact that I felt that the Packers needed to trade for T. I'm guessing this was T. Higgins. They needed to trade for T. Higgins because he's a wide receiver one on a team. He just needs to get on a team where he is the wide receiver one. And I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later, because that, they're not going to be able to continue to hit him with the tag. So, can't think of the name of it
I
right
think it was
now.
like almost 22
Franchise tag.
million this
Right.
year. I mean, that's monster money to just hold on. I think you're right that this was a Bengals hoping for. We're just going to repeat what we did last year, despite
Right.
our defense getting a little decimated in the offseason. Yeah, I think you're right. He's got to show it a little more on the field this year. That could always impact, but that might be more of a money thing, and he just doesn't get as much as he hopes to. But hopefully, it still opens up the fantasy window to have T. Higgins be a true one. I mean, he's already got that out. He's got that body size for it. That
Yeah.
you just need to get him in the right spot. I tend to agree. Um, Green Bay be a good spot. Off the top of my head, honestly, Denver. I mean, I don't know if you love Bo Nix as a potential, but they have truly no one.
Right.
Uh, I'm not.
Buffalo.
This is not a Bo Nix hype train podcast. Just to be clear.
Yeah. Buffalo would be another one that I think he would be great. Like that's where I wanted Devontae Adams, or where I want Devontae Adams to get traded to is the Bills. I think Josh Allen proved that he doesn't absolutely need a first round or a number one wide receiver the way that they had with Diggs and everything. But enough proving it. Let's get you a good wide receiver. It's going to help stretch the field and everything. So
interestingly, Aaron Rodgers, famously a quarterback who also proved you didn't need a first round wide receiver until he now has a first round wide receiver. So sometimes you see how it goes, but
yeah,
I'm sure Aaron Rodgers is in his feelings of some way right now, with everything that happened this week, and maybe this is a good time to turn it over to Rich for the greatest minute of your evening.
that's right. Everyone, are you ready? Because I'm ready to talk about my
Buckled
gingerbeard
in.
minute here. Yeah, no, I'm ready to get on this. We saw what happened in New York and the Jets firing Robert Saleh. I mean, what in the
Fantasy and Frames proudly brings to you a Dynasty 365 production. The Gingerbeard Minute!
All right, so it's Gingerbeard Minute here. Got you for a whole minute at least. I just wanted to talk about how absolutely shocked I was at how early, first off, that Robert Saleh got fired, and the fact that he was fired at all. I really like. I had a feeling he wasn't going to make it through the season, but I can't wrap my head around it, because it doesn't really seem like he did anything wrong on his end of things. Like he held up his end of the bargain. He's a defensive minded coach. They were a top 3 defense. It's not his fault that Rodgers didn't keep up his end of the bargain after everything that they did to get Rodgers. So the fact that Saleh got fired at all blows my mind. And honestly, I want to throw out there too, this is something that's weighed heavily on me for a while now, but I've just been frustrated with the fact that I'm still mad about the almost hug that happened, where Saleh went to go give Rodgers that hug and Rodgers pushed him back. I mean, come on, man. Get over yourself a little bit, because your coach was just trying to celebrate an accomplishment that you just had. Like, he's happy for you. There's nothing wrong with giving your guy a hug. Why did you have to push him away? What is wrong with you? Who hurt you? I need to know, Rodgers, because you obviously don't know how to show affection in any way, shape, or form. But also, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. You just come on, man. Be better. Be better. And that is the Gingerbeard Minute.
couldn't have admitted it better myself. Who hurt you? Maybe it was someone named Olivia. Maybe it was someone named Shailene. Maybe it was
Right.
someone named Mike McCarthy. I don't know, but I agree. It's sad. If you're solid, do you want to see them trade for Devontae and then just become even more of a dumpster fire somehow? Like, would that make you happy as Robert Saleh?
if I'm I mean, okay, I'll be honest. I'm petty when it comes to Rodgers. Being the Vikings fan that I am, I'm petty when it comes to Rodgers. So like yeah, there's a part of me that does, but I if I'm solid, no, I you know, that fan base has been through a lot. I don't think that I would hold it against them. Like I maybe don't want them to win it all. I want them to see that Rodgers is still continuing to struggle as the year goes on. But yeah, no, I wouldn't hold it against them. Real quick, Jamie, yes, this is a Smashing Pumpkins comic book shirt from when I went to go see them this last summer. And yep, the cocktail playbook, the gingerbeard plaque. Thank you for noticing. Yes, this does say the gingerbeard man on it. I'll let you know who my guy is, and we can talk. But all right,
Love it. Well, thank you all who are came out tonight to tune in to hear about some dynasty trade targets. Oh, you know what? I realized we didn't talk about anybody who you were steering away from. Do we want to do a quick hit of dynasty players that you might want to try to avoid,
I guess the only thing that I'd
or
like to
save it
say
for another pod?
real quick, just the only one that I really wanted to hit, and that's just because I was laughing about it this whole time, was Juju Smith-Schuster was also one of my sells. And that's is the beauty of dynasty in general, is the fact that there's always buyers and there's always sellers. There's a good chance that, like me, who I was just stashing Juju Smith-Schuster on one of my teams where I wasn't competing or anything like that, I'm going to try to flip him now. And where I mean, when you have a top player like that on a team that has a prolific offense like the Chiefs do, you want to sell them for as much as you can, of course. But if I can get that high second for him, I am more than happy. So, but even if I can get a third, the fact that I wasn't going to get anything for him before that, you know what I mean? Like, what were you looking at for value for Juju up until 3 days ago? Nothing. So be happy with what you can get. Sell them to somebody that's competing, and go make your team better.
So you probably get the value of like a Marquez Valdez Scantling for Juju Smith-Schuster prior to this past week.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, that is probably the best comparison I can come up with. They probably would have been solid together. Yep.
What could have been? Looks like maybe before we sign off, it looks like we might have one more comment or question in the chat here, Rich, and I'm curious thoughts on this one from Redraft as well as maybe a dynasty perspective. Jamie, appreciate all of your questions coming in. They're
Yeah.
really they're good. They're scintillating, making my brain work. So we've got: are you selling craft singles high right now after in the dearth of the tight end landscape that we talk about every year, and our top 5 tight ends that have all but disappeared between Andrews, Kelsey, Laporta, Kincaid, someone else whose name just escaped my brain when I said top 5 and I only just counted 4. But is craft the real thing, or just get it, or just try and get as much value in redraft or dynasty as you can right now?
Right. That is a good question. And I've been working on this, trying to figure out where I'm valuing craft right now, because historically the Packers have not really used their tight end position that much. Not saying that he is, like, I mean, the offense is different. Everything changes, like you were saying, the Chiefs have completely changed. They moved away from their tight end. Maybe the Packers will start to use their tight end more. So what he's done so far this year has been really good. And so, yeah, I think, especially given the fact that the landscape of tight ends in general, like you said, is just so abysmal right now. I'm all for trying to grab him where you can. I'm also for, if you're not competing and you have him, sell him for what you can. my brother, so my in a league that I'm in with two of my brothers, they actually were trading back and forth. They traded Kelsey for the one had Kelsey and the other one had Kraft and a second, and that's what they traded. So the one that had Kelsey, I mean, Kelsey's at the end of his career and everything, but he's probably still going to be a huge part of that offense this year, especially with Rashee Rice going back down again. So you look at it, the way I was looking at it, Kraft is still going to give my one brother that got him now a chance to succeed, and getting that second on top of it was huge. Whereas I think that, let's see, Jamie also says my co-hosts bought Kraft for a late first, which I think is way too high. Yeah, and that's what I was trying to tell my brother was, I was like, I think getting Kraft in a second is really good value, just because of what you could try to flip him for. So I'm holding him. There we go. That's honestly what if I have Kraft, I'm holding on to him and seeing what I got. I don't know.
Yeah,
Do you have any thoughts?
I think that in redraft, I think that's the right call. It's so hard, and I think when I'm looking for a not brand name tight end, I think generally what I'm looking for is an efficient offense where I feel like any touch they get has a good chance to just get me points. I'm not always looking for. It's so hard to find anyone with volume at the tight end position other than basically Kelsey. I mean, like Kittle to me historically was, he got injured, but he would go from being super featured to not, depending on the scheme. But even in the weeks that he wasn't super featured, he usually had not 0 points because they were such an efficient offense. So I personally think Green Bay, sorry to the Vikings fan, is running a hell of an efficient offense with the different role players they have. That even on a
Absolutely.
bad week for Kraft, I do think you're going to get low tight end one value on a week to week. We have another question in the chat here, Kraft related, that talks about, you might be someone who you picked up Kraft and you have one of those top 5 tight ends. Or in this case, we've got Robert Thomas, not to be confused with Robert Saleh. Robert Thomas, hopefully you've got a job today. But the question is, you got Hawkinson coming back. I think we probably have people out there who drafted Hawk late and picked up. Maybe they got Kraft. Personally, I would think Hawk looks so appealing based on where the Vikings are playing right now, but you just don't know what he's going to be at percentage wise. And you're
Right.
seeing what Kraft is delivering. Honestly, you're probably hoping for what Kraft is doing right now out of Hawk. Maybe a little bit more of an upside. So to me, I'd rather take the bird in hand, sell Hawk on the, hey, Sam Darnold's going to make this guy a star again. The volume he got at the end of last year, it's going to be insane. Get a premium on the trade before we actually see him on the field, because you might be talking about he comes back. It takes a couple weeks for adjustment. Those are wins. I mean, those are in the middle of the season. That's crunch time as we're getting closer to playoff contention. I'd rather have Kraft and get, a high end wide. You might be able to get a good wide receiver too for Kraft right now. I'd much rather have that and ride with Kraft. And, if you lose on Hawk, you lose on Hawk. I think he's great. I think he's super talented, but I just don't know. I'd rather sell on the potential and keep someone like Kraft on my roster right now.
Yeah. Yep. No, I'm with you there. That's you said it beautifully. And we got another question here from Jamie asking about where would we put Kraft on Dynasty ranks. As far as like tight end rankings, I don't really, and I apologize, I don't have a strong tight end ranking right now. I'm sorry, Jamie. I'll just be straightforward and honest about that. But I would say that he's definitely in the tight end 1 category, top 10 at least, just given what he's done. The thing that's interesting to me is the fact that last year it was Musgrave and Kraft, and it seemed to go back and forth and leaned a little bit more towards Musgrave. And now that Musgrave is out, Kraft is really showing up and showing what he can do. But Musgrave is still there. So there is a lot of questions about what's going to happen when he comes back. I think that Kraft has the job down, so I'm not too worried, and that's why I still would have him as one of my top tight ends. But yeah, there's definitely a little bit of concern for him.
That makes sense. I think people might sometimes they forget that it was the double tight end coming out of that draft class. So they're both on, I think, 4-year contracts. So it's not like they could easily just swap them in and out,
Yep.
assuming they're both healthy, which half a tight end workload is death in fantasy.
Right.
Not
Right.
something you
Yeah.
want to say. Unless you go back to like a few years of Patriots offense. It's like the only time I can think of two viable tight ends on an offense. But
Right.
well,
Yeah.
thanks everyone for coming in, especially strong at the end with the questions. Again, making the steam come out of my ears. Actually makes me think steamed hands. I don't know if we've got other huge Simpsons fans out there, but I'll close with just my wife and I got some poke bowls for dinner. Mine's sitting on the counter. I gotta still eat it, but we got some bao buns, and I just took a bite of it, and I'm like, they steam a good bun. And I just laughed to myself because I love my wife, but she has zero interest in The Simpsons. So I make illusions to myself all day. And then I go to sleep. And that's how I spend most of my days when I'm not jumping in to sub in for Mr. Chris Burns on the Dynasty 365 podcast. Well, I want to say thanks everyone for the support for Fantasy and Frames. Thank you to everyone who's watching on YouTube or listen to us from your favorite podcast platform. Please be sure to follow Rich on Twitter, X, at Rich Sickles GBM right there in the window for more Dynasty Fantasy Football advice. Feel free to visit our website, fantasyandframes.com, for articles and rankings, including IDP rankings for those in IDP leagues. Right here, super helpful on a week-to-week basis. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube or wherever you consume your favorite podcasts. And while you're there, please like, comment, subscribe, leave a review, talk about how the J Knobs is your favorite substitute podcast host for Chris Burns specifically, only Chris Burns.
Right.
Beyond that, like all the Fantasy and Frame shows, this is not the only one we've got. If you've been here for a while, we've got Tuesdays, the Waiver Wire show. We're Dynasty 365 for your Dynasty needs right here. Fourth and Frames is our redraft content. Shoot the Gap for IDP. Tune into the NFL DFS show for the Daily Fix, which is Friday night. So you've got a couple nights. Start planning. It's date night, whole date night, watch Fantasy Daily Fix, then go do date night. For your fantasy hockey needs, we've also got you. Come to visit our Around the Ice podcast. And if we got any bettors out there, the stew with JT Brew. He's got you both college and football prop betting content. Finally, tune in every Sunday. It's the best place on earth that's not currently in a hurricane. Fantasy and Frames kickoff show, and I hope everyone who is down in Florida is safe, protected. Thoughts are with you all. Not trying to throw that to the side, but the other happiest place on earth, I will say, is Sunday morning with your Fantasy and Frames crew. So with that, for Rich and myself, thank you again so much to our viewers, our listeners, and those in the comments. We appreciate you all so much. Good night, everybody, and let's go dominate those Dynasty leagues.